Pregame.com.
Wednesday night NBA action. The Philadelphia 76ers travel to play the Orlando Magic. I'm Marco D'Angelo. I'm joined by Brian Leonard. Brian, Philadelphia, they've got to be the biggest surprise so far in the NBA. I mean, to play as well as they've played so far, I don't think anybody saw this out of the Sixers. I know I didn't.
They came into the season, I thought they'd be pretty good, and they opened the season with a very easy schedule. And everything I ever heard was Philadelphia's playing well, but they've had the easiest schedule in the league. Now they're starting to play some pretty good teams, and they're holding their own. They're playing very well.
That's one of my, glad you brought that up. They just completed a 6-game stretch that included Chicago, Miami, Atlanta, Lakers, San Antonio, and the Clippers. All of those teams are going to be playoff teams this year. Of course, everybody's almost makes the playoffs in the NBA. But those are, let's say, the upper half of
Pittsburgh does make the playoffs in the NBA. Oh, that's right. You don't have a team.
We don't have a team, yeah. Okay. And how many championships?
I don't have many teams.
You know,
hey, we've gone to the championship. I was there.
The situation here, they went 3-3 in those games. So, that was a statement, stretch for them to see how they could, hold their own. Now they're going out on the road. They're playing an Orlando team that, let's face it, Orlando has looked very good at times. They have looked downright ugly at times. I mean, they've had games where they've scored 60 points, and it all comes down to when I look at the Magic, I see a team that is going to live and die. We know they got Dwight Howard inside, but this team still lives and dies if they can hit the outside shot. Because if they can't hit the outside shot, they're in trouble. And what I think is key when you're handicapping this team is to look at the schedule factor. If this team is in one of those segments where they've played a 3 and 4 days, or 4 and 6, they're not going to have the legs. And you've, in an earlier video this year, you told us, your great jump shot is not as good when your legs are tired. And it's the same way with these NBA players, although I somehow don't think your shot's
the older I get, it's easier because I never leave the ground. So.
I heard you have a 2-inch vertical leap.
That was in my prime.
But this is a situation, Orlando plays with revenge. They got beat at Philly. It was one of those games, when I tell you that they only scored 69 points, you'd say, wow, they must have got drilled. They only actually lost by 5.
They covered the spread.
They covered the spread that game. They were getting 7.5. And the reason they were getting so much from Philly is that was one of those stretches. And again, when you're handicapping, at least, I'm such a situational guy, you got to look at what they're doing right now, what the schedule is now, who they got up next, who they just came off of, how many days. And I know you're doing the same thing with this year's schedule. But when they've already played this year, you got to go back and look at the situation of when they played. And when they played, Orlando was in the middle of 4 games in 5 days. For a team that relies on an outside shot, if you're tired, that's a horrible situation, and thus you saw a 69-point effort out of them. But yet, in a negative situation, they covered the game. So now they're rested for this one. I think they get the revenge off of Philly here.
Yeah, you made a great point about looking at the schedule. Anytime you go back and you check prior matchups, you have to take a look at the situation, who they played before, who they have up next, how many days off did they have. And actually, both these teams are actually in very good scheduling situations right now. They're in a string of games where they have days off between every game they're playing. One is within 5 and one is within 4. The concern I have about Orlando, and you touched on it, was their outside shooting. You're going to get a high variancy from the Orlando Magic because so much of their offense is predicated on their three-point shooting. Philadelphia is a very good team. One of the best defensive teams in the NBA, up there with Chicago. I think Chicago is probably the best, but they win because of their defense. And Orlando has that ability, as you pointed out. They can look really bad at times. So I'm somewhat leaning towards Philadelphia in this game, taking the points. Philadelphia is 7-3 this year against the spread on the road, 3-1 on the road when they're rested. I just think the defense from Philadelphia is going to trump anything that Orlando can do here. I expect another low-scoring game. Well, I don't know what the total is going to be, but I think it'll be very similar to what we saw last time. It's not going to be to that general feeling of the 69 points, but keep in mind, Philadelphia's defense has been very good all year. They only held one other team all year long to less than 69, so that was their second-best defensive effort.
Right.
You wouldn't expect that out of a team like Orlando. So I think they match up pretty well with Orlando. And I'll take the Sixers here to win this straight up. They've been really impressed me.
Well, I got a slight lean to Orlando, but I'm going to give you a stat that actually supports you. We didn't give a projected line. You projected this at Orlando -1. My number was Orlando -2, so we're going to split the difference and call it Orlando 1.5 point favorite. Again, we're taping on Monday, so we don't have the official line out for Wednesday. This year, if Philadelphia's last game was a road game, they're 8-1 in the next game off of a road game against the spread. I know it's one of those little quirky ones, and one of the guys that, this would be one I'd send to our buddy from the Tuesday meeting.
Sean Hess?
Yeah.
Sean Hess would love that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but, it's there.
It may have some validity. I mean, a lot of times good teams, when they go off on a road trip, it's a bonding experience. So maybe they're playing very well. They're on the road. They're away from home. Maybe it's a positive situation for them. So maybe have some validity.
When you say the bonding experience, that's a key element in handicapping. When you find teams that have just a general chemistry, that's something that the teams that play as, in, let's use the word team, there's no I in team. When you get and we're seeing that with some teams right now in the NBA, just a little, segue. We talked about it earlier in the year, how the Denver Nuggets, and I know they've had a bad week this past week, but they've got some injuries going on right now. But that's a team, since that Carmelo Anthony trade, that became a team rather than a team that had a superstar, a semi-superstar, and then just cast members around. They're playing as a team. And the team that I'm going to bring up, and where I'm going, is the New York Knicks right now. Linsanity is just, taking this kid's got this team sparked, and what's going to be fun is when Stoudemire comes back, and more important, I think it'll be great. I think Stoudemire can handle it because Stoudemire, when he was in, at Phoenix, thrived having a point guard that could dish the ball, Steve Nash. He's going to like it. I want to see what happens when Carmelo gets back in the lineup.
It's interesting. If those two guys buy into it, then the Knicks are going to be a dangerous team because they have the offensive talent. I mean, if you've got a guy that can penetrate like he's penetrating, and you've got the big guy underneath he can dish the ball to, and then you can throw the ball out to three-pointers with Carmelo, the pieces are there. Problem is the history is also there, and we have seen how these guys have played in the past, and they've had a lot of talent on some of those teams, and it's telling that Denver's a better team without Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting to follow. Sorry to get a little segue away from it, but you can't turn the TV on right now and not see.
It's great.
This story.
It's great to see from people. I was a pretty good athlete when I was younger. I'm sure you were too. And as you go up, you start seeing yourself. You go, I'm not to that level yet. Yeah. And for this guy to go to an Ivy League school and then not even be drafted, nobody wanted him.
He got cut by two teams. Yeah. He was on the Golden State roster, and I think it was the Houston Rockets.
Yeah. Yeah, Houston's management came back the other day and says, yeah, we probably made a mistake. So.
You think?
Yeah. It's a great story.
Yeah.
It's something that I really root for as a fan. So,
I like to see it. Your official play here?
Yeah, I'll take the points with Philadelphia, but I do want to point out, since that last game, Orlando's playing a lot better now. They're 5-2 their last 7 games. The only 2 losses they had were in overtime. So they're playing a lot better now. They're playing with some cohesiveness now. I just think this is a bad matchup for them.
We'll see what happens there. I got a small lean to Orlando, no official play for me. Wait and see what the line comes out. And then, of course, both of these teams do play tonight on Monday. So given how the results of those games can, skew what I'm thinking Wednesday. So great segue. One way to find out what we're thinking is go to pregamevideos.com. In the forums, ask us a question when the line comes out. If it comes out a little different than we projected here, see what our thoughts are on game day off of the Monday results. And we put all of the videos in that one thread. And later in the week, Brian will be back later in the week with the Vegas Runner. Scott Spreitzer will be in. We're going to try to get Steven Nover in. I'll be back. So you've got videos all week long. We try to cover all of the games, give you some type of action, Tuesday games through Sunday each week. So check it out. You can always go to pregame.tv as well to see all of the current videos. He's Brian Leonard. I'm Marco D'Angelo. Thanks for watching. We will be back with more videos later in the week.